Hey folks, so welcome back to ETU 300. I want to get my PowerPoint up here working for you. There we go. So you were to read Chapter 6 in the last couple of weeks, and so I'm going to talk about data organization today. I know that some of you are just beginning to collect your data and others are still thinking about that, but I do need to remind you the time is getting short. So we're getting down to the wire here. Next week will be the first week in November. You should be collecting data and you should be well on your way to thinking about how you're going to organize this data. So I'm going to go over that today. I'm not going to go over everything in Chapter 6 because some of that really speaks to the methodology chapter. So I'm going to walk you through a PowerPoint and then I'm going to show you some examples to help you think about what do you do with all this data once you get it. So, excuse me. So there's three parts here. First is reading the data, becoming familiar with the data and looking for themes, and I'm going to talk extensively about that today. The second part is the description. This is writing up a detailed description of the setting, participants, and activities. This will be in your methodology section. So we're not going to talk about that today. We'll talk about that later when we talk about the methodology section. Excuse me. But classification we will talk about today. So number 1 and number 2 are going to be very important as you get your data together, and then what the heck do I do with all this stuff? You've got raw data. You're going to have to organize it. So classification is the process of categorizing and coding the data by grouping it into themes. So let's jump right in. First of all, understanding your data is not just a once-through reading process. It takes several reads to digest this data, to really have it speak to you and help you to think about what's coming out of this data and what's happening. I want you to remember and go back to your questions, okay? You should have these sub-questions. That's what you're looking for. As you read your data, you're going to keep those questions in mind. You're going to be looking for what are the answers that I'm getting from my data, okay? So it's not just reading it blindly. You're going to have this focus for reading it. You're going to be looking for those related themes and threads that speak to your sub-questions. So, step 1. First of all, you need to get organized in terms of what your questions are and what your data samples are, data sources are. So I want you to create a sources of evidence chart by research sub-question. I'll show you a model of that in a second, but let me just walk you through that. So what that does is you have at the very top what your main research question is, all right? And what kind of a study are you doing? You're doing a case study, you're doing a basic interpretive study, and just note what kind of a study you're doing at the very top. And then from that 1, you're going to have your research, your sub-questions. 3 is the magic number. More than that, it's okay, but 3 is really what you want. So you're going to have 1, 2, 3 sub-questions. And then under the sub-questions, you're going to indicate the issues you hope to be addressed from the data in each of those sub-questions. So what is it you want to find out from each one of those sub-questions? And make a list of those. And then below that, where are you going to get those answers? What data sets are you going to get them from? Are you going to get them from interviews, from observations, for what? And it may be that you're going to use all your data sets to answer all 3 questions, which is what mine does, but not necessarily. So here's an example, and you're not going to see it very well because it's very small, okay? So let me see if I can bring it up in a better way. You know what? Let's see. Let me see if I can get to it. Hang on just a second. I believe that I can if I try hard enough. So yeah, here it is. Okay. So here it is. It's a little bit better to look at. Okay. I'm going to blow it up. So you can see at the very top, I have, this is my study, my model I've been doing along with you. It's a case study of teacher identity. So I have the broad heading. Here is my main question. Notice that it's changed a bit from what I first started out with when we first started working together. And I suspect yours may change a little bit as well. This is the process, recursive process of doing research, of thinking through what you really want to know. So my question now has morphed to, how does this particular sample of students, notice I've limited, this is just about this particular sample of students, enrolled in an online methods course. And I've added that piece because as I read through my data, I realized that the online part of it was significant, and that may influence the ways in which teachers note their identity. So I've added that. In an online methods course, come to their individual ideas about what it means to be a teacher. And then I thought about that, and the sub-questions I originally had didn't really get at the heart of that. The sub-questions really need to get at it. So I revised my sub-questions too, because I decided there was really three things I wanted to know. I wanted to know what their beliefs were, but I also wanted to know what influenced those beliefs, and I also wanted to know what they thought about what was good and bad about a teacher identity. So I crafted three questions. What are the beliefs of this sample about what it means to be a teacher? Okay, so their beliefs. And then what influences the beliefs that this sample has about being a teacher? And then three things I wanted to know. What are the characteristics, affordances, and or constraints does this sample associate with a teacher identity? So it's what they believed about being a teacher, what influenced their ideas about being a teacher, and what they saw as characteristics, affordances, and constraints. Okay. And within those three questions, there were some issues that I was hoping to get out of the data, and you need to list those here. So the next section is, what do you hope to get from the data for this question? So for the beliefs, I'm hoping to get information about their past beliefs, their current beliefs, and the beliefs that are still in flux, beliefs that they're sort of, on the fence about. So there are three things that I want to know from this. So what this does is this focuses my reading. So as I read, I'm going to be looking very, very carefully for words or phrases, recurring themes that speak to past beliefs, current beliefs, and beliefs in flux. Okay. Same thing for the second question. There was quite a bit of things in here I wanted to know about, and so you'll see in a little bit how I try to group those. But for their influences, what influences their beliefs? So I wanted to know what the past or present teaching influenced them, how their peers influence their ideas of teaching, how their parents, siblings, children, professionals, professional development, education courses. There's a lot here, and you'll see that I've grouped that a little bit in another document. But for now, from my raw data, I'm hoping to find out about these influences. Now, it may be that I don't get answers to all of them. They may not talk about the influence of family. They may not talk about the influence of peers. But I'm hoping to get at least some of these addressed in this question. So it's important that I write it here so I can focus my reading. Okay. And the same thing here. Okay, this one is a little bit easier because I'm asking for three things. I want to know what the characteristics, affordances, and constraints. So I just simply list those here as well. All right. So now I need to know, where am I going to get these things? Where am I going to get these answers to these questions, and where am I going to find this stuff? So I'm using 4 different collection sets. I'm using discussion forums for my online course. I'm using the journals that students wrote for that course. I'm using my observation of peer interactions, so my notes and so forth of how students worked with one another, and then their self-assessments. Now, I've limited my data from originally because I originally was going to use their units of study, but I realized that that data set wasn't going to give me the answers to these questions, so why waste my time reading them all again? I've already read them once. I'm not going to get what I need from that. So I've limited my my data sets to what I know I will get answers to. Okay, so that's what my sources of evidence chart looks like. You don't need to use the fancy inspirations model like I do. You can just do, you can just type them or write them, however you want to do it. But I want to see this chart, and you need to pass it in to me, okay? Because I want to make sure that you understand before you start analyzing data that you need to have this grid to help focus your reading. Otherwise, you'll be looking for all kinds of stuff that you're not looking for answers for, and it'll drive you crazy. All right. Let me go back to my PowerPoint. Okay. So, let me switch the screens here. Sorry about that. Okay. So, that's the evidence, okay? Let me go back one. All right. So that's the sample. So once you've created your sources of evidence chart, then you're going to look at your data and you're going to divide it up by collection instrument. So you're going to put all your observation notes in one place, all your interviews in one place, all your artifacts in one place, and whatever else you have, okay? So you're going to divide those up into these categories, okay? You're going to take each category one at a time, and you're going to read it through, just to read all the way from beginning to end, okay? And then sort of let that digest a little bit. And then read again, and then with a pen in hand, or if you do it on a computer, which makes it a little more, I do mine by hand, but you can do it on a computer and use your annotation tool. Go through and write memos or annotate about what you're beginning to see for recurring themes or common threads. So again, use your sources of evidence chart to help you. Okay, I have mine right here. Okay, so when I look at what am I finding about beliefs, what do I see here? What are some of the common themes about beliefs? And I start noting that in little memos. Okay, I can do that on the paper or I can do it on another piece of paper. But I want to keep really good notes. I want to be able to get back to these. Okay, and then read it again, keeping this in mind. All right, and ask yourself: is the chart correct? Is this what you're seeing, or does this chart need to be adjusted? So in other words, are you seeing possible answers to your questions, and are the issues being addressed as you hope? If not, then adjust your sources of evidence chart. So you may have listed under sub-question 2 that you were hoping to get information about X, Y, and Z from your observations. Excuse me. But now as you read your observations, you're realizing they're not addressing sub-question 2, they're addressing sub-question 3. So you need to move that over there, okay? And so forth. So, this is a continual, retooling of what you're doing until you have this perfect. And then this, when you get ready to code, this is absolutely important, okay? So again, you're going to be reading several times, you're going to be writing notes, you're going to be thinking about the themes and so forth and so on. Now, step 3 is classifying. So once you've read through all your data, you create a list of themes that emerge. Okay, in other words, you're looking for patterns, you're looking for key phrases, recurring events, matching responses. And these themes, again, should line up with your research questions. This is what you're reading for. So you'll start collecting themes, okay, and ideas, all right? There should be one broad theme for each of your sub-questions, okay? So if you have 3 sub-questions like I do, there should be a broad theme for each. And the ways in which you structure your questions will help bring those themes out. Just like mine, I have the themes of beliefs, influences, and characteristics. 3 themes, okay? That's what I'm looking for. So I'm focusing my reading, I'm focusing what I'm looking for, all right? The themes should emerge from the question and the data. So they should be working together. That's why you have to retool this if that's not happening, okay? So make sure that they're aligned. And then for each theme, you'll have several sub-themes. So for my theme of beliefs, I have 3 sub-themes. For my theme of influences, I have 6 sub-themes. For my characteristics, I have 3, okay? I'll show you those in a minute. So you have to be thinking about what are the sub-themes here. So if you have a theme of belief, and remember when I showed you that chart, I wanted to know about past, current, and influx. Those become my 3 sub-themes. Past beliefs, current beliefs, and beliefs in flux. Okay, so when I read and I see these things popping up in the reading, I can code each of them. All right, I'll show you in a second. So step 4 is coding. So coding is a way to organize your data by theme. Again, you'll create a master code for each broad theme, then create a subcode for each of the sub-themes. And here's the fun part. Get yourself a box of Crayola, okay? I happen to have Crayola markers, okay? You can use colored pencils, you can use a highlighter, and if you use your computer, you can use your highlight tool and give it a different color. So for each of your master codes, give a color. So I've given mine green, purple, and red, okay? You can assign colors to each sub-theme, but that gets really monotonous, okay? It's better to keep the broader color. I'll tell you why in a second. Then create a coding map to guide your coding of the data. Okay, so what the heck's a coding map, you ask? Well, I'm glad you did, because I'm going to tell you. Oops, I want to escape this. Hang on. So what's a coding map? Here it is. So here's my coding map, okay? And what I've done now is I've taken my themes by sub-question. So I've listed each of my 3 questions, okay? Remember, that was on my sources of evidence chart, okay? And I've now given it a code. So beliefs is going to be coded BEL. You can do it anything you want to. You can make them icons, whatever. But you need to be able to remember them and know how they fit. And letters are the best way to do that. So my code for beliefs is BEL. But I have 3 subcodes. One for past beliefs, for current beliefs, and beliefs in flux. So I have beliefs P for past, beliefs C for current, beliefs F for flux. So when I code, I'm not going to code just for the BEL. I'm going to code for these 3. So everything will be subcoded. But it'll all show up with green, because then I can group all my greens together. So here's my handy dandy green pen, my camera here, and so every time I read something about a belief, I'm going to code it with green. And I'll show you in a second how I did that. The same thing for this. Notice that I have several codes for influences. Past, present, peers, family. So remember I had a lot of family members there. Instead of coding each one separately, I just put them together. So family would include spouses, siblings, parents, anyone considered grandparents, family. Okay. And then I decided to put professionals and professional development together, but when I continue reading, if I see there's a lot here, I may want to separate those out. But right now I have them together as PD, but I may separate them out as PROF for professor or PD for professional development. But I need to read some more of my data first to see if I need to create that coding map a little bit, extend it a little bit. And then I did the same thing with education courses and our professors. I put those together under EDU, but I may switch that out and do EDU, then PROF or something like that. But these are all purple. But I will use these letters to code each one. And I just noticed that I've got, this one is wrong, okay? This is present influences, okay? It should be present I, okay? No, it should be, I'm sorry, present. I'm going to have to make this different. So this one needs to be different. And I'm glad I picked that up, because that would have been a disaster if I'd been coding. I think I'm just going to put peer. If I had been coding two things with a PR, then I'd have to go back and recode to know which was present and which was peer. So make sure that your letters are different enough so you know. And make sure when you write them in there or type them in that you're clear about that. And for the characteristics, same thing. There's characteristics, affordances, and constraints. And I've given letters to each one of those. So this is my coding map. It's a very simple one. But as I read and code, I keep this right beside me. So as I'm reading and I see things being said about any of these, I'm going to code it with my markers, okay? Right? I'm going to underline it with the color and then write it on the side, okay? If I'm doing it on a computer, I'm going to highlight it with a color and write it on the side, okay? You may see that some pieces of information can be double-coded under influences and beliefs or something like that. That's okay. It's okay for them to be double-coded. Just make sure that you note that. All right, so I'm going to close this one out and go back to my PowerPoint and switch the displays. There we go. All right, so coding. All right, this takes a long time, people. Okay, depending on how much data you have, it takes a fair amount of time. There's a lot of reading, a lot of thinking, a lot of organizing, and so this is why I'm really encouraging you to get moving here. All right, so here's the coding map, and again, see my example. And I'm going to put these are all up on Blackboard, so you can actually print these out and look at them if you want to. So step 5 is grouping. So now you have this data, and you've read it, you've classified it, you've made your coding map, you've coded all your data, you've got a nice needy pile. Now you need to sort those all out. Okay, so you need to group them to make sure you have the data in the right place. So group them by data, by master code. Now, this means that, you need to have not only paper copies, but you need to have electronic copies as well. So now you can go to your electronic copies and you can do cut and pasting and pull out all the greens and all the purples and all the reds and all the grays or whatever color you're using. And you pull them out and you put them in another file. So you have the master code. So mine will be master code belief. And I'll pull out all the green things that I've highlighted. I'll have those on my paper here, but I'll have my electronic copies, and I can just reach up and cut and paste and move those over into where they should be. Making sure that I bring the participant's name with it or pseudonym so I know who said it. So if I have, Abigail that has, saying something on the beliefs, I'm pulling that over, but I'm putting her name with it. So Abigail and then that. So the names have to come with it so you know who to associate it with. So don't just pull all the data over because you won't know who said it. You won't be able to make a quantitative statement about how many people said this thing. So the name needs to come with it. I'll show you in a minute how to do that. Some data may speak to more than one master code, so just cut and paste it in 2 places. Okay, so you've got it in whichever master code it goes in. Okay, so this is kind of tedious. If you've got a teenager that can help you do it, it wouldn't help, it wouldn't hurt, but it's just a matter, again, this is what researchers do. A lot of it is 90%, sort of this kind of work. But you do need to group them. So you've got all your information by master code, okay? Then, once you have that, okay, your master code groups, Now you classify even further by grouping by each subgroup. So if you've got all your greens together, all right, now you look through there and you divide it out by subcode. So I have 3 subcodes. So I'm going to get all of my beliefs together, and then I'm going to separate that out into beliefs past, beliefs current, and beliefs in flux. If you're really good at using the computer, you can do them both simultaneously. So as you're pulling out all the greens, you actually have the subcode note on your document, and you're putting it in the right one. That's the easiest way to do it. So, you know, the master code, and then you have the subcodes. You pull the information, you plug it into the right one. Okay, that just saves a step. So you should now have one master code group for each of your sub-questions and several subgroup code groupings within each master code group. Okay. Step 7 then is understanding what all this means. You spend a great deal of time coming to understand your data. You spend a great deal of time classifying and coding. You have it all nice and neat and organized. You have these nice little piles or files on your computer. Hopefully now you've got them back on the computer and it's all electronic, because that'll make life a whole lot easier. If you don't have electronic copies, then you end up actually cutting and pasting, I mean with scissors, you know, moving the data around. That's really messy. So if you can, you know, get it back on the computer, or have files on the computer, you know, do your coding and annotating by hand. That's how I like to do it. And then, you know, just pull that data from there by using your hand ones. Again, use your computer to code if you want to. I just find it really clumsy. Excuse me. But the example I'm going to show you, I did code a small section using the computer so you could see the colors, and I didn't have to like scan it in color and put it back up there again. So understanding. So you've classified and coded all this data. So now you have to start creating an outline of how you will write the results section. This outline should follow your sources of evidence chart. That's why this is so important, because now you've got the outline pretty much made for you. So section 1 of mine will be teacher identity beliefs. I'm not going to form it a question anymore, and I'm going to make a statement. And I don't know what that'll be yet, but it'll be something about teachers' beliefs. And then, how do I want to word that? I don't even know yet. See, it's too early for me to start thinking about that, but it will be a statement. And then my next section in that results section, next heading, will be about influences. Okay. The next section will be about characteristics. Okay. And I'll come up with a snazzy little title for the heading, but I'm not at that point where I'm ready to do that yet. So I'll now have my 3 headings. I've got all my data grouped, you know, so now I need to look to see what do I want to say in each one of those. What's significant, all right? You know, if 8 out of 10 participants say something about a topic, that's significant and reportable. I'll say 8 out of 10 participants indicated X, Y, Z, and then I'll discuss it. I'll give some quotations from the data to, you know, but that's how you begin to you know, sort of then create that outline to help you think about how you're going to construct this section. But we're not going to talk about that today. That's way too much, okay? The format for writing up the results section will come later. But for now, you've got to collect the data. You've got to, you know, read it and understand it, immerse yourself in it, classify it, code it, and group it. All right. So let me show you a couple more things. First, I'm going to take you back to something I gave you early in the semester. Okay. So you'll understand what we're doing here in this research report. Remember this little chart? We've talked about introductions, and I should have your introduction by now, and I don't have them for a lot of people, so I really need to see these folks, okay? I've been trying to give you as much autonomy as possible and treat you like a fellow researcher, but boy, we've got to get some deadlines going here because you're going to be in trouble otherwise. If I don't have your introduction, do get it to me. I have a tab, submission tab on Blackboard to submit it, or let me know that you're submitting it so I know to go look, okay? The literature review you're working on, okay, that's going to be important. That's going to be due as well. And we talked about how to do that, create the annotated bibliography, and then create the literature review from that. The methodology section we're going to do later. We're going to skip over to the results first, okay? So this is what I'm preparing you to write. There's a lot of preparation. You don't just sit down and write the results, okay? It's all that, again, that's grouping and categorizing and classifying and coding that has to be done before you can begin writing. The implications will come later too. That's what you believed about what you found out, and then your reference section. The abstract will write last, all right? So just reminding you of the format for this report. All right, so I'm going to put this back. I'll leave it there, okay. And show you what I'm talking about in terms of coding. So here is just one small section of my data. What I've done is I pulled the participants who gave me permission. I pulled their discussion forums from the discussion forum. Going through and cutting and pasting. It's tedious work, folks, but that's what I had to do, okay? You know, fancy colleges give you research assistants and they get to do this kind of work, but I don't have one, so maybe in the next research project I do, I'll put in for a research assistant, and maybe one of you guys can help me out. That'd be great. But in the meantime, I pulled them all out, and I've given them pseudonyms. Remember, you have to mask your participants. You can't use their real names, okay? So I've given all my participants, pseudonyms, so it won't be recognizable. And you'll notice that I've also brought their responses in. So to Silas's initial response, there was 1, 2, 3 responses to that that gave me permission. So I not only pulled the initial post, the responses from those people who gave me permission, because there's a lot of rich data there as well. But here's how I code. Okay, so I have my coding map. Okay, remember I showed that to you. Looks like this. Okay, all right. And now I keep that beside me and I read. And as I'm reading, I look for, again, those key terms, all right? I think to me, teaching means helping students reach their potential. All right, so that little blurb right there, teaching means helping students reach their potential, is clearly a belief in my mind. And it seems to be a current belief, okay? So I've coded it BELC for current. That's my code for current, all right? And then down here, I definitely thought of myself as a mathematician first and a teacher second. Thought is past tense. And this is definitely defining what a teacher believes about being a teacher. And so I've coded this belief past. This one right here, I need my glasses, the purple kind of masks a little bit. I loved math in school, was a top competitor on the math team. Okay, I read that as an influence on his becoming a teacher. So I've coded that influence P for past. And that's how you do it. It's very tedious, but it's fun. It really is. You'd be surprised what you come out of there, okay? And then I look up here. I want to help inspire others to be the best they can be. Right, so for me, that is definitely a belief. And I'm going to code it green. And then I'm going to use the comment section, to code it, okay? So this is belief current, okay? Right? Down here, there's another one here where it says, I was always tutoring tons of kids in my college dorm. When I read that, that for me is an influence. Okay? So I'm going to code that in purple. Where's the purple? Okay. And I'm also going to add a comment for coding. And this is influence, and I think this is influence peers. Okay. So because when he was in college, they would have been his peers. So P-E-E-R. Okay. And I'll go through and I'll do this, and there'll be multiple codes here along the side. It gets kind of messy, but it's, again. And so then when I get ready to do my grouping, I'll use my highlighter, again, my cut and paste, and I'll put all the greens together, all the purples together, and all the reds together. So let's see, is there anything else that I had up here to show you? No, I think that was it. Let me put that back, and let me pull up the Blackboard site so we can look at that together. So for this week, all right, we talked about the annotated bibliography and writing a literature review. I want to see your literature review by November 2nd, all right? That needs to get done. If there's some reason you can't get that to me, please let me know. But we need to get moving here, folks. Here's the topic on organizing, classifying, coding. I'm going to put this video right in here. Here are the documents that I just showed you so that you can look at them. As well, you'll have the PowerPoint to look at as well. Use your group forum for feedback, share with one another, and talk to one another. I want you to create a sources of evidence chart. Look at my model and lecture for how to do this. And then if you haven't submitted your annotated bibliography, get that to me as well, and get your sources of evidence chart to me as well, okay? Questions? If you have any, let me know. Let's look forward to November 3rd, and we'll talk more about coding, okay, and give you a work week. So I'm going to go back to, which was yesterday, which is today, but I'm getting late getting up, and I apologize. I did send you all an email about that. I need to put a submission for your literature review, and I'll do that after I finish doing that. So there'll be 3 submission tabs here, one for your annotated bibliography. If you haven't already sent it to me, if you have, don't send it again. And your lit review, I don't have anybody's lit review yet, so I want to see those, and your sources of evidence chart. So you got a lot of work to do. There's some catching up here to do, people. And I know some of you had some challenges this semester, and I understand that. And, you know, if you can't get them to me by November 2nd or 3rd, let me know when you are going to get it to me, because, again, folks, we're running out of time. And, you know, if you have questions about this organizing, classifying, coding, let me know. We can do a Google Hangout. You can send me some of your data, and we can code together. You want to come in and meet with me in my office and bring some data. We can sit down and code together. I can help you create a coding map, you know, and any of those things. I'm happy to do one-on-one work with you, okay? So just let me know. All right, folks, I think that's it. I think I've talked enough. I think I'm reaching 30 minutes here. So I'm available. I'm not going to be available Thursday and Friday this week. I'm having a medical procedure, nothing major, just one of those routine things. But you can email me and I'll still answer you. It just may not be like immediately like I tend to do. But have fun with your coding and your classifying. Please be in touch with me constantly, okay? I'm here to help you and to help you become a better researcher. So with that, have a great day.